Welcome back to Albert Park for the Qantas Australian Formula One Grand Prix. There's the circus right in front of us now. Just before the break, we would have seen a shot of Jean Alesi in the Prost in the garage. And we're just getting word through that he will be starting from pit lane. Alan, what do you think might have gone wrong?
Yeah, well, as I said to you at the time we saw the picture, it was very unusual to see a driver out of the car and the car still in the garage. So they've obviously struck some last-minute snag, and I wouldn't be at all surprised. We'll probably have that verified that he might even start in the T car, but he will have to start from the pit exit after the last car on the grid goes past.
So he has to sit, wait, watch them all go past, and then away he goes.
Then they'll open up the pit exit and off he goes.
I suppose it's not too bad. He's only two rows off the back anyway, as it was.
Yeah, I mean, it'd hurt a lot more if you're in the first couple of rows, that is for sure. And so we've got the two new boys down the back. Well, I mean, really what they should do now is take off and not try and get too excited, let the field sort itself out. There might be one or two that go off in the first couple of corners and then they can take advantage of it.
Well, we saw Michael Schumacher do it last year. In fact, Rubens Barrichello as well. They were both off the back of the grid at the end when we finally got underway last year, and now their teammates sitting in the second row. We're going to go down now to the national anthem, and once we get that underway, of course, we'll be just moments away from starting the Australian Formula One Grand Prix for the year 2000 from Melbourne.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the singing of the Australian National Anthem by Bachelor Girls, James Roche and Tanya Toko.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty. History's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Stirring sounds of the national anthem as we get set for the first Formula One Grand Prix of the millennium. Look at the colour there in pit lane as we're almost ready to go, just on the left-hand side, and on the grid itself as the starting cars there. Let's take a break. When we come back, Alan Jones will go through the grid one more time, and then it's action stations here on Nine's Wide Water Sports. Welcome back to the Qantas Australian Formula One Grand Prix. Albert Park, Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. And as you can see now, we're just moments away from getting underway. And let's go through the grid positions. Alan Jones.
Okay, well, Mika Hakkinen, pole position for him yet again. His teammate David Coulthard beside him. The two Ferrari boys, Michael Schumacher and Barrichello on the second row. The two Benson Hedges boys, Frentzen and Trulli on the third row. Eddie Irvine in the new Jaguar, a great result for him. Jacques Villeneuve in the new Honda-powered BAR in 8th. Fisichella, Mika Salo, Ralf Schumacher in 11th. Pedro de la Rosa in 12th. Verstappen, Wirtz, Heidfeld, the new German newcomer, Zonta, Alesi, Genet, Deniz, Johnny Herbert well down there, Jenson Button his first Grand Prix, and Masakan his first Grand Prix, bringing up the rear.
And as we know now, Jean Alesi starting from the pits right at the back there. Let's have a look inside the cars here, Alan. Just take us through it. It looks like a helmet once upon a time has stopped your head from getting smashed. All those tubes going in, what are they?
Well, the tube going into Mika, most teams now have their own physio, their own fitness guy and their own medico. Now, I wouldn't have been at all surprised if he's had a urine test and whatever else test this morning, considering that the weather is this hot and the ground temperature is so high. They will have mixed a formula to give him what he was deficient of at the time he had the test. So there could be anything in there.
So when he wants a drink, he hits a button and it just squirts into his mouth?
He just hits a button on the steering wheel, and that electrically gets the fluid going into his helmet and consequently into his mouth and replenishes his fluid loss.
What about the actual steering wheel itself? We see a number of buttons on there as well. What does all that do?
Well, I mean, the steering wheel now is just unbelievable. I mean, they reckon the cost of a Ferrari wheel now is about $75,000 US.
So you don't throw it when you have a stack anymore?
Well, you might get into trouble with Jean Todt if you did. But no, they can pre-select a situation. If they're coming into a second gear corner, for instance, they can press the button, the car will go down to second gear in readiness for that particular corner. They can talk backwards and forwards to their pits, obviously. They can put fluid in their helmet. They can seek out information digitally on the dashboard, how the engine is running in different bits and pieces. It's unbelievable. I, quite frankly, don't know how they remember it all and drive the car.
We saw a little strip across Barrichello's nose there just to keep the air passage open in the nose. A lot of the American gridiron players use that now. We see also the blankets on the tyres. What's all that about, Alan?
That's to keep the temperature of the tyres up. What they do is these tyres have got an optimum operating temperature, and what they do is they put their electric blankets, literally, and they put them on the tyre. They're heated up, and hopefully they will be the last things that are removed from the car, because when these cars have got reasonably cold tyres with 800 horsepower, they're extremely difficult to control. So they take those tyres off at the last possible minute, maintain the heat in the tyres, and hopefully they've got some grip from the word go. All
right, well, we've been talking about it long enough, Alan. Who's going to win?
Well, I think you'd probably have to say Häkkinen. I mean, the two Ferraris were knocking on the door speed-wise, and I'm sure that Schumacher would have been further up had that lap not been stopped. But looking at the cars and looking at the body language, I think they're doing it just that little bit tougher. The McLarens just seem to be doing it fairly easy. I think the Ferrari's got the speed, but I think the drivability of the car is a bit more difficult than the McLaren at this stage. On the other hand, a Jordan could spring a surprise, because they're just quietly going about their business. They've got the reliability, they've got an engine from last year, there's no new engines. It's just mainly a development from last year, so they could be a surprise.
All right, so once again, it's Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, the two McLaren drivers, on the front of the grid. Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, the two Ferrari drivers, next. Then the two Jordans of Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Jarno Trulli, and then the two wildcards, if you like. On 7th position, Eddie Irvine, who won here last year driving the Jaguar in his debut performance, and then Jacques Villeneuve, who of course has won a world championship in the BAR team, now starting to be competitive finally. Well, it's the Arrows team there, plenty of orange across the top of them as well. There's the Williams team. We're going to be ready for a start in a few moments' time. Let's head down now to our international callers, Martin Brundle and the voice of Formula One, Mr. Murray Walker.
This, of course, is the formation lap. Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, and if anybody drops back incidentally or has a bad start, they are now allowed to take up position on the formation lap. Unfortunately, that has not happened.
Yes, they're all away nice and cleanly. And all of the cars on your right-hand side of the grid, the left of the grid from the driver's perspective, have an advantage. That is the racing line. That is going to be cleaner. Fortunately here, there's an awful lot of races through the 4-day period, and it does tend to even that grid up a little bit in terms of the level of grip. But still, Häkkinen's side of the grid, the odd numbers, will have more grip away.
Well, fingers crossed for a good start. It was aborted last year. Michael Schumacher stalled his engine and had to start from the back of the grid, and then the two Stewarts nearly burst into flames.
Interesting tactics here. Look how hard the two McLaren boys are taking that field round. That's very unusual. Normally, they'll have to back off in another couple of corners and bring the field together. Otherwise, they'll be standing at the front of the grid for the best part of a minute. They've got to hold the field up towards the end, but they really did scream away. Looked pretty much like a tactic to me.
This is the approach of turn 11 and turn 12, the right-hander there. They accelerate up to about 165 miles an hour as they go past the Powerhouse Exhibition Centre, the one with the white roof there. Then down, this is a 16-turn course. The lap is 3.27 miles.
Everybody, my understanding is everybody except Jenson Button on the softer tyres, and I'm also expecting very long first runs here, probably mid-30s in terms of laps before they come in. I think Ferrari were experimenting with two-stop fuel this morning, probably more to rattle the cage of McLaren than anything. I'm really fully expecting them all to one stop, and as the tyres appear to give more grip as they get older around here, for whatever reason, the compound has changed this year. It seems a bit more durable. We're expecting them really to try and stay on those tyres as long as they can. That means the cars are very heavy on the line, Murray.
Yep, and a credible thing in the warm-up this morning, Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari was fastest, an amazing 1.6 seconds faster than anybody else. Quite what that means, I don't know.
What it means exactly is the difference between running a one-stop fuel load and a two-stop fuel load. That weight put into the computer equates exactly, and what it also means is there's very little in the pace between Ferrari and McLaren.
We'll see. There are the two McLarens. World champion Mika Häkkinen driving through the heat haze. David Coulthard peels off behind him. Michael Schumacher pulls up behind Häkkinen. Barrichello behind David Coulthard. There are the two yellow Jordans in their new brighter livery.
Yes, Coulthard.
Alesi.
Coulthard and Frentzen have lined themselves up at a slight angle to try to get over on that cleaner line as soon as possible, and Alesi patiently waiting in what must seem a very quiet pit lane.
Well, he was starting 17th on the grid. He's now effectively starting 22nd. A big penalty, not as bad as it might have been, though. And just look at the heat. It's about 40 degrees on the track down here.
Lights are on, the red lights are on.
3 lights, 4 lights, 5. It'll go out and it will be go in Australia. Lovely start by Mika Häkkinen. David Coulthard's going well. Schumacher is third. And coming up very well is Harold Frentzen in the yellow Jordan. He's passed Rubens Barrichello. Rubens Barrichello goes down a place, and it looks to me as though everybody is through the first sequence of corners, and Mika Häkkinen has got David Coulthard riding behind him. There is Rubens Barrichello. A terrific long jam of cars. Are they all going to get round this corner? Yes, they do. Round the Sports Centre corner. And so it is McLaren leading as it was last year. McLaren second as it was last year. Michael Schumacher is third. Frentzen is fourth. Barrichello is fifth. Trulli is sixth. And in seventh position, well up, is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR.
Yes, despite all of their practice and testing to get away, the Ferraris were both particularly tardy off the line. And fortunately, Michael Schumacher was able to stay ahead of the Jordans, but Rubens Barrichello dropping down to fifth place.
Well, I tell you, the Jenson Button is going through this field like a hot knife through butter. I saw the last 5 together, and he was not amongst them. Indeed, I believe he's up with his teammate Ralf Schumacher. We'll have to look down the field. He's up into 15th position. Jenson Button has moved up from 21st on the grid to 15th before the end of the first lap. Mika Häkkinen, there he is, from Finland in the McLaren. And now look, this is very different to last year. Last year, the two McLarens, Häkkinen and Coulthard, majestically strode away from Michael Schumacher. They're not doing it this time, but the first 3 are stretching away from the first Jordan. Lap 1 completed. Look at the gap there. This is great stuff already, and we've got to have 58 laps of this. It's going to be a long, hard, tiring race. Hard on brakes. When are the fuel stops going to come? McLaren, Ferrari, Jordan, Ferrari. Marc Genet has gone into the pits already, and at the end of the first lap, Jenson Button is in 15th place. Behind Rubens Barrichello, Trulli is 6th, Villeneuve is 7th, Mika Salo is in 8th position. Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar has dropped down 2 places tonight.
And Herbert is out of the race. Johnny Herbert, who's had an appalling weekend, is already out of the race. He's at the end of the pit lane here, so he's past the white line, now in vision with you, and, well, no way they can recover that car, and there's no point in doing so anyway, and Johnny, well, what's he got to do? We say this every year, don't we?
We do. Well, Jaguar have got a very special oiling system, combining the oil in the engine and the gearbox. It's given a lot of trouble, and it's continuing to do so.
And I don't know what's going to happen here. It looks like, oh, and this is why Johnny's out of the race. Look, he was minding his own business, going around the outside, and a Sauber and probably a BAR on the inside touched and just ran into him, has clearly damaged his car.
Yeah, I was just looking to see where Herbert was at the time.
What's interesting here, Murray, is the McLarens are actually just stretching away gently. Look, it was 1.4-second lead that Häkkinen had over Schumacher at the end of the first lap. Let's see what it is this time round. 2.2, look, so he's a full 8/10 up. So Michael Schumacher not showing that blistering pace yet.
You heard what James Allen was saying, but it was sensible strategy, to a lot of people, to put Mika Häkkinen on a two-stop strategy, David Coulthard on a one-stop strategy between Häkkinen and Schumacher, which is where he is now. That would fit the circumstances at the present moment, with Mika Häkkinen definitely making the pace and a gap developing between Schumacher, who is third, and Frentzen, who is fourth. That gap, 3.4 seconds.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Häkkinen's on a two-stopper, to be honest, because I think that means unless he can really skate off into the distance, at some point he would have to overtake at least one of the Ferraris. So I think Häkkinen is just blisteringly fast in these early stages, which almost Senna-esque he's tended to be in the last few years.
Yeah, Mika Häkkinen has got this incredible ability, which he demonstrated yesterday, to pull out something very, very special when it's needed. He did it for qualifying yesterday when he took that pole position for the 22nd time in his career. He's doing it again right now.
Both McLarens failed on Saturday morning, where Ron Dennis assures me they know exactly what the problem was and it can't reoccur. Remember, the Ferrari was far more bulletproof last year in the reliability stakes than McLaren could achieve. So Michael will be probably reasonably happy sitting there, slightly disappointed the McLarens are pulling away from him, but it seems like he's pegged it this time around.
Well, the thing that's interesting me at the moment is that I did not expect, the gap has increased very slightly to 2.4 seconds between Häkkinen and Schumacher. I did not expect Heinz-Harald Frentzen to get ahead of Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari as quickly as he has, and to stay there. They're battling very closely on the track. We haven't seen them, but the Jordan is tucked right up under, and behind is Jarno Trulli in 6th position. So the two Jordans are 4th and 6th. Here are the leaders: McLaren, Ferrari, then Frentzen, then Barrichello, then Trulli.
Yes, I expect to see more of Barrichello later in this race. He's particularly good around this racetrack. Plus, he's been so mature all through the weekend and so calm. He seems to be completely under control. Louise is with Johnny Herbert.
Johnny, that was hardly worth doing your seatbelts up, was it?
Well, it's been a weekend like that, to be honest. It's been very difficult for everybody. We knew we had an engine sort of problem. We hoped we'd come here and obviously got rid of most of that, but we still haven't. So we've got to put ourselves together, obviously, regroup, really delve into it and find the problem, of course. We have a few other reliability issues as well we need to do. But, you know, generally it's, we know the car, when it runs, is actually a capable car. But obviously it's just a bit frustrating, like today, where you get a good start. You're getting a little bit, all right, it was a bit I think Pedro got pushed by someone who got pushed into me. But then the clutch went directly after that, so I was already on my way out, which is, you know, it's just a shame because we need the mileage now.
Things can only get better.
Well, you're watching now the Jordan followed by the Ferrari. It's Frentzen and Barrichello. Just behind them in 6th position is Jarno Trulli. Where is Johnny Herbert's teammate Eddie Irvine in the other Jaguar? He started 7th. He's been passed by both the arrows of Verstappen and De La Rosa and Mika Salo's Sauber and Villeneuve's BAR. So Eddie Irvine, the man who won this race for Ferrari last year, is down in 11th place. And Mika Häkkinen has now just made another fastest lap of the race. He's really flying. 1 minute 33.9.
Well, Barrichello's got a job on to pass that Jordan, which is not too slow in any part of this racetrack. Barrichello's got the faster car at the moment, that's clear to see. But has he got enough of an advantage? There really are so few places around here. The braking and turn-in areas are short and very high-speed turn-ins, for example, into this chicane, and doesn't offer any overtaking opportunities. That's Alesi trying to make up ground, trying to overtake the Sauber, and clearly locks the rear wheels, probably on downshift as he headed into the apex with a bit too much speed. And that's put him probably straight to the rear again.
Yeah, his dander is well and truly up. He had made his way up from last to 18th, as we look at Jacques Villeneuve now, 7th position in the BAR, and right behind him is Mika Salo in the Sauber, the man who drove for Ferrari at BAR last year. Salo in the Sauber with the Ferrari engine, and Jacques Villeneuve will be looking not just for another finish, he didn't have many of those last year, but for BAR's first point, as Pedro de la Rosa of Verstappen have a look at Mika Salo. The new orange arrows are going magnificently with the Supertech engine. They've got a brand new chassis, they've got two very tidy drivers, and one of them, Pedro de la Rosa, you can see in 10th position, is swarming about all over Salo, and behind the second one, Jos Verstappen, is Eddie Irvine in the Jag.
Yes, and I'm expecting that arrows to be quick through the entire race. Looking at it, remember I said in qualifying yesterday, it's very supple at the rear. It seems like it rides the track and the bumps and the curbs, and I think that'll pay dividends if they're doing very long stints to keep the tyres better intact. Running quite wide there, Verstappen, but the arrows seeming to be confirming their winter season pace. Salo doing very well there in 8th place too in his first race for Sauber.
Lap 6 out of 58. There's the leader, Mika Häkkinen. You can see how far he is ahead of David Coulthard. Look now for the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. It's about 2.8 seconds down the road as Häkkinen comes through to complete his 6th lap. But Michael Schumacher is still very, very much in touch with the leaders. Frentzen is still 4th, then Barrichello and Trulli. Mika Häkkinen has just done another fastest lap, and Michael Schumacher goes quicker again. Michael Schumacher is piling on the pace. He's closing slightly. He's got it down to 2.7 seconds.
Yes, Schumacher's very fast in the last section of the racetrack, over half a second a lap faster than McLaren's, and that's where he's able to make it up. So Michael beginning his charge now. Barrichello still tucked up behind Frentzen by just 0.2 of a second. Button dropped back to 16th place. He's lapping about 2.5 seconds slower than the leaders per lap.
And that is nothing to be ashamed of in his first race. Incidentally, it's the first race, of course, for the BMW V10 engine in the two Williams cars of Jenson Button and Ralf Schumacher, who is in 13th position, Ralf Schumacher. And David Coulthard is now taking up the attack. Fastest first sector this lap of 3.3 miles is split into 3 sectors. Eddie Irvine has spun, and it looks as though both Jaguars are likely to be able to shove off, says Eddie Irvine to the marshal.
Yeah, well, the engine stalled, so Eddie's just trying to manoeuvre it, 3-point turn it out of the way, and he wanted to decide which direction it was going in. So the safety car is standing by, we see from the computer here, but I think they'll clear that more than quickly.
Oh,
there's a wheel off there too, so whose wheel is that?
Yeah.
Somebody else must have crashed in there too, you know, because Eddie Irvine had 4 wheels. Eddie Irvine had 4 wheels on his car. Look, there it is. So somebody else, not in our... Safety car is out. Safety car deployed, and we think it's De La Rosa has gone off into the wall.
Well, that makes sense because they were together in 10th and 11th places. And as in 1999, so in the year 2000, the safety car goes out, which gives Michael Schumacher the opportunity to close up on David Coulthard, and David Coulthard to close right up on the race leader, Mika Häkkinen. There they are, first, second and third.
What I suspect happened is De La Rosa's gone off and collected Irvine or distracted Irvine in the process, but we're waiting for a replay of that. Now let's have a look here. We're going to find out. De La Rosa running wide, look, and he's lost control there.
That's very strange.
Is that the same car? I think that's Verstappen.
That was Verstappen, not De La Rosa.
Yeah, and this is the look, a front suspension failure on Verstappen's car. I wonder if it was the same problem for De La Rosa. So both arrows off in the same lap.
Well, a bad opening Grand Prix for Jaguar with Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine both out by the 8th lap. Don't be too discouraged, though. There's a long and very steep climb in Formula One to reach the top. And Jaguar are right at the bottom of the ladder now, starting with what was the Stewart team but there's a lot of new things in it and a completely new motor car. So we're now on lap 8 out of 58. The field will close right up while they remove the broken bits of motor car, and the race will effectively restart, but from a rolling start instead of a standing start.
Good news for Jensen, of course. That's moved him up to 13th place and enabled him to close back up to the leading pack. So at the moment he's tucked up. He was just 0.6 of a second behind Wirtz before the safety car came out.
Now, one of the problems in this sort of a situation is to make the safety car go fast enough. Well, we'll soon see, but whilst this temporary lull is happening, we're going to take a break. Into lap 10 of the 58 lap Australian Grand Prix. The safety car's still out, and as I said, the race effectively restarting. Sprinting out from the pit lane comes Pedro Diniz in the Sauber, and bringing up the rear is Marc Genet there in the newly liveried Minardi, very much improved motor car. And the news, incidentally, that the takeover by the Spanish Telefonica organisation is almost completed, and it's quite likely that it will have been by the time of the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, in which case the Minardi team will all move out to Spain from Italy. And the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. You know that when you see the lights go out on the roof. The safety car comes into the pit lane, and mark this very carefully, the drivers are not allowed to pass until they have crossed the line. And Eddie Irvine realised that very smartly last year by hanging back when Mika Häkkinen, the race leader, actually faltered. Eddie Irvine passed him after the line and took over the lead.
Well, they put Verstappen back out on the track. They have repaired that apparent suspension damage, so hopefully they can understand exactly what the failure was all about. But they're going around there now. Their tyres are going to be 60 degrees centigrade. They need to be about 90. Their brakes are going to be 300 to 400 centigrade. They need to be 600 to 700. So they have to be very careful when they start this new lap, because as the tyre temperatures go down, so do the pressures. They're running normally about 20, 21 PSI. They're probably 15 or 16 now, so the car runs lower, and now they've got to try and build up some kind of temperature as they lead into the restart. Häkkinen is in control. Once that safety car pulls off, Mika Häkkinen becomes the new safety car, and he has the control as to when to move over the line.
Häkkinen leading, Coulthard second, Schumacher third, fourth is Frentzen in the yellow car, fifth is Barrichello in the Ferrari, sixth is Trulli in the second Jordan, seventh is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR, eighth is Mika Salo in the Sauber, ninth is Fisichella, 10th is Ralf Schumacher, and the safety car is in, and the Australian Grand Prix again is go! Häkkinen, Coulthard, Schumacher, and the gap between them 1.4 seconds.
I can never understand that, why they don't bury the nose of their cars under the gearbox of the one in front, why they allow the restart to take place without being as close as possible to the car in front. I know you have to a certain extent, react to when, for example, in this case, Häkkinen decides to pull away, but they don't, not like the IndyCar drivers, where they really seem to maximise this opportunity to overtake. The F1 drivers seem quite happy to go in line astern.
As they are now. There's the McLaren leading, McLaren second, Ferrari third, Jordan fourth, Ferrari fifth, Jordan sixth. The top 3 rows on the grid are the top 6 cars in the race, albeit in a slightly different order, because Frentzen is ahead of Barrichello. And in 7th position there's Villeneuve, right behind him is Salo, right behind him Fisichella and Ralf Schumacher in the leading BMW Williams. That is in 10th position. Jenson Button, by the way, is 13th in the race. Lap 11 out of 58. Here they come.
Michael Schumacher very close to David Coulthard this time around, not close enough to have a stab in the braking area, but he's certainly giving David something to look at in his mirrors, and Schumacher making a better fist of this early part of this restart when, as I said, all the temperatures are down and Hakkinen, as ever, scampering away.
And Barrichello challenging the Jordan in front of him of Heinz Harald Frentzen. In comes David Coulthard. Now, this is a very, very early stop. Good heavens. Whatever strategy he's on, I wouldn't have expected a two-stop strategy to come in before another 8 laps.
I wonder if he's got a puncture. There was a lot of debris on the track from the Della Rosa accident. I've got a feeling it's a left rear puncture for David Coulthard. It looked a little bit out of shape, that tyre. Bit of a guess on my part there, but I can only assume it's a puncture from Coulthard.
Well, it must be that, and Coulthard, of course, is losing place after place after place, and Michael Schumacher has now only got one McLaren in front of him, and it is the McLaren of reigning world champion Mika Hakkinen.
Mechanics are having a look